The best leaders learn to assimilate all that surrounds them. No matter what tools they choose to use, they carefully cultivate an aptitude to see the big picture, while at the same time, they search for the devil in the smallest detail. As sure as leadership is a journey filled with pinnacles and pitfalls, finding the most successful path involves a balanced blend of vision, talent, understanding, knowledge, self-discovery, and yes, creativity. Leaders, as Robert Greenleaf writes in his essay, The Servant as Leader, leaders must be more creative than most, and creativity is largely discovery, a push into the uncharted and the unknown. Every once in a while, a leader needs to think like a scientist, an artist, or a poet. Let's meet 3 leaders who already do.
It's the creative outlet that I have gotten to be reasonably good at. I did the work in high school, and then I got into computing, and software design, by the way, is very creative as well. And then didn't really get into it again until 2001 or so, when I bought my first digital camera. And then what I discovered is that it's a creative outlet that you can carry with you anywhere in the world, and you can enter into a creative endeavor that has a output that you feel good about in a defined period of time that can be fairly short. I think for any good creative process to have an excellent end product, you have to then have some vision for what that might be, and then try a bunch of different approaches to get there. And if it's in painting, which I don't paint, but I watch my daughter paint, she will often repaint something or paint various areas. It's the iterative creative process, right? With photography, I will often take 3 or 4 pictures of the same thing, sometimes 5 or 10, and inevitably it's actually either the first or the last pictures, never the ones in the middle, right? That are the one that ends up being the best. With coding, the same thing. If you have a product you want to end up with, or some problem you need to solve, there's many different paths you can take to get there. And I'm much more interested in running a high-functioning collaborative team than I am in running a hierarchical bunch of prescriptive leaders that do things their own way. So that's what I enjoy. That's what I get energy from, is working with a bunch of creative people to make something huge happen.
There's no important person in my life. There just isn't. Hasn't always been this way. At some point, there had to have been a person that made me feel happy as my splat pink hair. At some point, there had to have been a person that made me feel loved as a small baby bluebird in Mama Bluebird's nest. At some point, there had to have been a person that made me feel important as the president at her inauguration. Right now, there's no important person in my life, but at some point, there had to have been. What we say is right from the heart about who you are, and we create this safe space and we create all this help. There's this aspect of human nature that it's in our nature to want to heal ourselves, and we know how to do it. And we can't make a kid say anything that kid doesn't want to say. But when we make it possible for them to say anything that they want, very often they say what they really need to say to heal. And in the case of the abused and neglected kids, the traumatized kids that we work with, it's often a sad event. And that's our role. That's what we do. coming back to the leadership, if you can be aware of your emotional strength and vulnerability and represent all the best things that come out of that are the best things that can happen, which have to do with ethical purpose and intention and relationship and doing good.
One, two, three, four. I don't know why I said this, but I said, okay, clarinet. So my parents bought me a clarinet, and that lasted for about, 3 to 6 months only. I didn't like it. So I said, I don't like clarinet. So then my mom said, okay, but you got to pick another instrument. And I said, guitar. And my mom said, well, that's fine, but I'm not buying you a guitar. I've seen this movie. We went through the piano, we went through the clarinet. I'm not buying you a guitar. We're renting you a guitar, and if you have staying power with this guitar, then we'll pay for half of it, but you're going to have to figure out a way to pay for the other half of it. I do a fair amount of public speaking, but despite that, I was scared out of my mind the first time I had to perform one of my songs in class. It was one of the most frightening, there's no safety net, kind of feelings that I've had. And I remember physically trembling. Because no matter how creative you are, you're not going to come up with every great idea, nor are you going to see every great possibility, right? It takes a community of creative people, and at the end of the day, that's what I've tried to create here.
Clearly, leaders are not loners. A true leader can't do it all alone. They need their followers, their teams, and their band, and a riff to build a dream on.